What's up? It's Way Up with Angela Yee, and today we are definitely way up, and I needed this today. Tasha Cobbs Leonard is here with me. Thank you for coming to the studio.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Man, it is an honor, and congratulations on the album. And I know you've been working and doing live albums, but for you to have put together this studio project, how do you feel now that it's out?
I feel great. And you know what? I expected it to take some time, people to sit and listen to it, and then but people have fallen in love with these songs. And I was a little nervous. You know, it's something new. It's something different for me. So I did it really with my knees shaking, just really nervous. But everybody's response has been absolutely incredible. So I'm super excited.
It's nice when you can challenge yourself in those ways too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like getting out of the comfort zone of, okay, this has been working and people know me for this, and now I got to shift, to something different. It's, and to have put out a book also prior to that.
Yeah.
That was your first book, right?
Yes.
Do It Anyway.
Do It Anyway. Yeah. And so I feel like this album, it just kind of builds on the foundation that the book created, like this new transparency, telling stories about my life, the ups and downs, the hills, the valleys. And you can't be that open and then go back to a place of being closed. It's like, now that I've put it all out there, let's also do that in the music. And so these songs are very transparent. They're, in your face. It's talking about, some hard seasons that I've gone through, hard conversations that we have with God. Sometimes like what are you doing? So some of those songs are very in your face like that. And I think it really, I got comfortable with it because of the book.
Right.
Like, okay, now I'm putting it all out there. I talked about, us losing the baby. I talked about going through the grief with my dad and what that really looks like, And now with the songs, I can be honest that when my faith was shaken, I had questions.
I feel like things changed so much when your father passed. That was in 2014. And you talk about that whole journey and winning a Grammy a few days later. Being in the audience for that. And I wanted to ask you also said in the book that your family did therapy. Was that the first time you guys had, as a family, done therapy together?
Yes. My mother, though she was grieving. So the story with my mom and my dad is beautiful. So they started dating when she was 13. She was 13. He was 15, I believe. And so they're the only two people they had ever dated. She had never been with anyone else. And so they kind of raised each other. They had been together for a very long time. And for her to be thinking about everyone else during that time, she called our entire family. So not just immediate family, but my father's sisters and brothers, her sisters and brothers, because they all just kind of grew up together. And then, of course, my dad pastored a church. So she also had the therapist to come into some of the midweek services to talk through, therapy. And I really just feel like she was just taking a faith leap during that time, because she was smothered in grief, but her love for her family was like, I know that he impacted everybody's lives, and if I'm going through, I know you're going through. So all of us agreed that we would do grief counseling together.
We don't hear a lot of stories like that nowadays either. Like, she was 13, he was 15.
I know.
That is, you know what, earlier we were discussing this, Kirk Franklin has his Den of Kings podcast. And Tyrese was on the last episode, and he was talking about how many bodies he has.
Right.
And then we were discussing on the air how, the average number is somewhere like between 4 and 8. And anybody who says more than that, it just feels like a whole lot. But that's because I also feel like people... Nowadays, it's hard to be like, this was the only person I've been with, because I feel like we have so many distractions, so much access to people.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's
you know what I mean? It's a little different than, because now people you went to school with could look you up on Facebook.
Right. Yeah. And I never thought of it that way. You had access to the people that you went to school with, went to church with.
Right.
But now the world is so open. You can find people anywhere around the world. Right. That is true.
Like,
I never thought about it.
Let me go see what my high school boyfriend's up to.
Wow. I never thought about it that way. That's a good way to think about how the numbers can grow now.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
You also discuss social media and being on TikTok, and you had a moment when you realized, like, okay, I'm gonna just put a little something up on here. Maybe a few people will look at it, but like very quickly over 1 million views. When did you realize the audience that you had, and just really that it was like, this is your true calling?
That's a loaded question because, sometimes I can be off and on with social media because they'll clap for you today and crucify you tomorrow, so you have those ups and downs. I think one of the moments that I realized that my platform was very influential was when I did the first song with Nicki Minaj.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
You could do
when
these
she
things.
shouted you out and was like...
So people have their opinions and they're very verbal about it now online. And to be honest, that was the first controversial moment that I had online. And I think it's an awakening that, hey, okay, now you got to be careful what you say, careful what you do, because people are watching, every move that you make and you influence their lives as well. And I take that very, very seriously. Sometimes people will come to me and say, well, what do you think about the girls that are watching you? And they're exposed to this because I feel like, too, the Bible talks about training up a child in the way they should go, and then when they grow old, they won't depart from it. I believe that even with the rise of these new features and collaborations across genres, I believe that those of us who are in Christ and those of us who have raised our kids right, they're covered, and they see that influence in the homes. Like, I think it's the responsibility of parents still to be, that influence over your children's lives, and you can't really depend so much
on celebrities,
influencers to raise your kids. You know what I'm saying? Even though we do take on that responsibility that kids are watching us, so I'm very responsible with what I do online and what I say online. But for the most part, I have to be led by what God tells me to do. And I really believe that even both of those features with Nicki have been great just to expose people to, to gospel songs, to ministry, who, just to be honest, they're not coming to our churches.
Yeah.
They're not gonna walk in the church. Maybe they don't feel welcome. Maybe they don't feel worthy, but they'll hear a song that says, blessings, or I'm getting ready to see everything that God has for me. I feel like that moment was really, really strong for me, but it also, like you said, it was eye-opening to the influence that I've been entrusted with.
When you first heard like the first song that you guys did together, did you just leave it as is, or were you like, should we change this around? Or
oh man, no. So the way that happened, that was a live record, but I did it live in studio. And during that time, it was cultural to just kind of hold on to your songs before you release them. Don't put out. But I chose to do something different. So while we were recording throughout the week, I would put out little snippets of the songs just to give you a little taste, right? And I did that one song, I'm Getting Ready, and Nicki saw the clip, and so she sent me a message on. Actually, she didn't do a DM. She put this in the comments. Like, she meant that. She was like, when you're done with this song, send it to me, and I'm gonna put 16 bars on it. And I was like, well, it's out there now. And I literally did that. When we finished the song, I said, Nicki, hey, this is the song that you liked. It's called I'm Getting Ready. And it was just live, straight up gospel song. And she said, this is what I want. This is what I need. And when I tell you, in about a week, she sent that song back. There were no changes, just straight up heat. It was incredible. And so what you hear is exactly what she did in that moment.
I love it.
Yep.
I think it is great because, just like we've seen, and I feel like every artist and with gospel gets like some backlash whenever they collaborate outside of the space.
Yeah.
But how do you want the space to grow if you're not collaborating? And how do you invite more people in? And how do you not have judgment? And how do you feel like I can say who can come here and who can't,
Yeah, I think that's a part of the conversation too, because a lot of times we can look at it like this secret society, like it's me, my church, my four walls, and no more. But the truth is, we are trying to win people, win people's souls, win them to Christ, and the only way you can really do that is by reaching out.
Right.
The Bible says specifically, go out into the hedges and the highways and compel people to come. And sometimes that may require us to collaborate and to do features and to connect with people that some people might think, oh, I don't agree with what they did. You know what I'm saying? But their audience is now listening to a Tasha.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I also was thinking about, there was like some chatter about GloRilla winning. And I
Maverick
saw,
City. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I saw that conversation. What did you think about that for GloRilla winning for, like, I think it was Best
BET Awards. Yeah. She Best Gospel Album. I think it's a conversation that people are people are always going to feel some kind of way, like you said, with these collaborations. One of the things that I do want to say is I think in that conversation, we overlooked talking about the gospel artists who were on that track. So you had Kirk Franklin, you had Kiera Shear, Kelly, you had Chandler Moore. So it's not void of gospel artists. And these are major gospel artists who are doing great things, who were also on that song. It just happened to be a feature with GloRilla. So they all won a BET Award. So the argument is, how can a rap artist win a gospel award? But you also had gospel artists on that song as well.
You know, I want to go back to us talking about therapy and your family doing that. What were your thoughts on therapy before you did it?
Ooh.
Just because I know when it comes to church and when it comes to therapy, I feel like things are more aligned now. But I think also in our community, the thought of therapy for a long time has been stigmatized. So
That's true.
I just want to know, was it something that for you had a different view of it until you did it?
You know what? It was a beyond just church. I grew up in a very, very small town in Georgia. So on top of, this is God, your Holy Spirit is going to take care of you. He'll take care of your mind. You also got, okay, you going to lay on somebody's couch. What's wrong with you? You have just the cultural shunning. They're shunning this. So my mother that was my first time going to therapy. However, our family was very open to it because I had cousins who had moved to Atlanta, moved to different cities, and they were exposed to different things that they in turn exposed us to. So we were very open to it. And I also grew up in a Pentecostal church.
Okay.
So, you got all of these layers of don't do that. But for my mother to choose that, I think it made a huge statement for our family that God uses people to help us to a place of freedom in our minds. And that I love that she made that statement. And so I believe in therapy. I have a therapist right now.
Okay, period.
Yes. So but I also believe that my mother making that decision gave me the okay that, hey, this is okay for you to do, to take care of yourself and your mental health.
What would you tell people if, like, say right now, I do feel like a lot of the younger generation is trying to figure out, like, what am I doing with my life, right? How do I tap into my gift or my passion? And sometimes they can look at what other people have. Yeah. They can measure success by the amount of followers or how much money they're making. Yeah. What advice would you give for people that need to figure out, how do I tap into my personal gifts and my passion, and then also make this something that I can feel like I'm successful?
Wow, I think it's wow. This is loaded because what you're asking requires a lot of maturity and wisdom. And I think the first thing that young people should seek after is that, like, who am I outside of what I see every day on social media? And it's okay to look at someone like a Tasha or Angela and say, man, I love where they're going in life. I love the things that they're doing. How can I glean from some of the things that they've done, but not try to be them?
Right.
That requires wisdom, because outside of you being you find yourself in an identity crisis. Like, I'm not completely Angela, but I think I've been consumed trying to be everybody that I see online. I think the first thing we should seek is wisdom. Like, okay, teaching our young people that you can look at a Tasha, but find yourself in that. I think about my mentor. So my mentor's name is William Murphy, and he has a song called "Praise Is What I Do." Back in the day, it was like a huge gospel song. And I remember when I moved to Atlanta, I started to travel with him and just watch how he flowed, just how he would lead worship. And one day he said to me, "All right, Tasha," people had started calling and booking me, and I was like, "Well, what do I sing when I go? I don't have any songs." He was like, "You sing my songs and you do what I've done until you find you." This is what he said to me. So I would mimic the way that he sang the songs. I would do his runs and all this kind of stuff. But one day I realized, when I did it this way, it worked even better because that's Tasha's way.
Right, that's you.
And I feel like we can get so consumed in trying to be the big star that we see that we lose ourselves in it. But I think what you should seek to do is find yourself in what they've done. Like you were just talking about this major event that you did and you put it on for the city and, blessing so many people. I can find myself in that.
Right.
Like, wow, Angela did that and so can I, but do it my way.
I like that you said that because sometimes people don't like when celebrities post like giving back. And they'll be like, when I give back, I want to do it quietly. I'm cool with that.
Wow.
But I don't think it's bad
Not at
when
all.
people post it either because maybe somebody will be like, I want to do an event where we're giving away backpacks, free back to school things, haircuts, hair braid. I want to do that too. So how can I learn? Because I don't think it's so bad. I've seen people get backlash. You didn't have to post that you did X, Y, and Z. You should just do it quietly. And you can choose to do that. But I also feel like if you do something good, there's nothing wrong with you advertising and letting people see that because that can be a catalyst for other people to say, you know what, I'm going to start my own X, Y, and Z too.
Yeah, and it could be like you were just saying, a young person that's lost, trying to find their way, trying to find their purpose. And then they see you do that and it's like, that's who I am. That speaks to me. So I'm all for it, And no, you don't post everything that you do.
Yeah, not everything.
But I feel like it is important to also not just show the glitz and the glam,
right,
but to also show the work that you do in the community.
Yeah, if you're going to go out and do something like donate and volunteer, you could post a place so other people might say, oh my gosh, I'm going to go and volunteer, as well and work in the shelter and give out whatever. Like, I think that's a good thing.
That's beautiful.
To let people know that those services are available.
I agree.
Now, getting your first record deal, that was not something that was even you trying to go out and pursue that. That was something that kind of happened, but it happened on the terms that you wanted.
Right.
So I want you to discuss how you even got signed because you were singing in church. Yeah. You didn't even want to do that.
Right. Not originally. I did not at first. Yeah, right. That's true. Because I had family members. So I grew up in a family of singers. Everybody sings on my mom's side. So all my aunts, all the cousins, it's just the thing. And then on my dad's side, it was full of musicians. So they played keyboards and guitar. So I've been surrounded by music my entire life. But it wasn't something that I wanted to pursue. I actually wanted to be a teacher.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I wanted to be a math teacher. I enjoyed math.
Math teacher?
I know, right? Just so far, Tasha. So, but I did. I wanted to be a teacher. But when I moved to Atlanta in 2006, I started leading worship at our church, the Dream Center in Atlanta. And I just started writing these songs. Like, songs would just come. Songs like Smile and Happy, all the songs that people would sing back in the day. And I just remember two of my friends took me out to lunch. And they set me up because I thought, hey, we're just about to have a girls' day out. We're hanging out. And as soon as I sat down, the first thing they said was, so when you going to do this album? And I was like, what are y'all talking about? What album are we talking about? And I think it's really, really good to be surrounded by friends. I'm going to take a sidebar to people who can see things in you that you might not even see yet. Like they saw that this was a huge gift on my life and they wanted to pull that out of me. So I'm so appreciative of that. But it was just something that I did not lean towards. It was I love leading worship at my church during that time. I love writing songs that we would just sing in our church during that time. I was not pursuing a record deal whatsoever. And when they said that, I could not shake it. I literally sat up all night thinking about it, and I got up and I just started writing out this plan for a live recording. Literally. And I know this sounds miraculous, but
that is miraculous.
Literally, this is how it happened. A budget and everything. I never done anything like that in my life. And so the next day I went to William and I was like, hey, I'm doing a live recording. He was like, what are you talking about? Just yesterday you were fine leading worship. And they really just kind of pulled something out of me that I didn't know was there. And a few months later, I did my first independent album that my dad was the executive producer on. He funded it. He left here, went to be with the Lord, saying, baby, when daddy get his money back? And he funded that from my parents' savings. He cleared out their savings because he believed in me so much. And he funded that album. And that album, we put it on YouTube. It was, when I say independent, it was old school independent. We had CDs in our trunks. I was going here and there and everywhere, just selling them and pushing it myself. And people picked up on it and they started singing those songs in their churches. I will never forget
that is miraculous. Yeah. I've never heard of something like that happening.
People started singing it around the world in their churches. They would sing these songs. And right after that, I did a live recording for a gospel artist. His name is Myron Butler. And he had me do this song called My Life Is Not My Own. It was a feature on his record. And I'll never forget, just like on Sunday mornings, I got up and I sang that song. And for about 15 minutes, people were just crying in worship. He could not move on with the recording. And EMI Gospel happened to be there that night. And 2 days later, that Tuesday, they called me and said, hey, we want to put you on as many platforms as possible for you to do what we saw you do Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah. And I signed to EMI Gospel as a gospel worship artist. And I've been with them ever since. Yeah.
I remember, I think in your book you said one woman that was working with you was like, she's worked with all kinds of artists and she's never felt like what she felt when she heard your music.
Wow. Yep, absolutely. One of the things that I really took to heart, like coming into the industry, is that there were so many people who are broken, so many people who are torn about their relationship with God, but they're the ones distributing the gospel music. So I felt like before I can like minister and inspire the masses, I gotta minister to the people who I work with every day, who are
to get them to
traveling with me.
understand, right?
You know, so and I mean, many of them were broken, just in a dark place. And if I could be just a light in their life, that was one of my desires. That was one of my prayers. And many of them that I've worked with over the years, they have that testimony that, Tasha, you have been one of the best artists to work with. It was just a joy. So I love to hear that. It was life changing for them and for me.
It's interesting that you've managed to be the light for so many people, but then have been in a dark place yourself. And people would never expect that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can also feel like, well, I should know how to get myself out of this situation if I can do it for other people. And even like having conversations and listening to God speak and tell you what it is that, and just kind of accepting that. But sometimes it's not so easy.
Yeah. I probably between the years of 2010 to about 2012, I was in a really, really dark place. Just battling depression and fear and anxiety. I remember I would go to churches and I would just watch people be set free, you know, hugging babies, kissing babies, and, you know, smiling. And I would go home for like 2 or 3 days and be under the covers, curtains closed, just really, really plagued by depression. And I remember just one night I woke up and I just felt like, hey, I gotta get free from this, because what God has for me, I can't go into it if I don't break this.
Right.
You know, and so the song Break Every Chain, people talk about that song, but I experienced the chains breaking off of my life through that song.
Don't you think, and to do a song like that is like the biggest, you know, smash hit record, but it came from such a place in your own life. It's crazy how something like that, your darkness turned into like a huge light for so many people, including yourself. Yeah, that song, I'll never forget it. For 2 weeks straight, I would just play it constantly in my house. Like, I needed those chains of depression and fear to be broken off of my life. And for years, I had battled with it, and I just could not get it to break. But I think the intentionality of just reminding myself of that God loves me, that I'm made in his image and his likeness, because during that time, my entire life, I had struggled with weight. You know, my weight was up and down. I remember I was 350 pounds right around 2012. And that was the heaviest I had ever been. It was the darkest place I had ever been mentally, just really, really struggling with anxiety and depression. And I feel like the weight was an outward display of what I was dealing, the weight that was a reflection
internally. Yeah. And so I just made a decision back then that I am going to drop this weight. I'm going to break this chain of fear and depression that's on my life. And I was very, very intentional about it. I changed the way that I spoke, because I believe you live out what you say. Like, a lot of times, sometimes we just have to change our language, that, you know, I am loved, I am beautiful, you know, God cares about me, I'm made in his image. You know, I was very aware and intentional about what I said in my language, and it just changed my lifestyle, you know. And the more that I did it, the more I could see just like the light coming in,
right,
in that dark place that I was in.
I love that you say that, because sometimes people look at someone who's overweight and will be like, they just eat too much, or they're just lazy, and they need to just go to the gym and eat less. And it's not that easy. If it was that easy, no one would be overweight.
That's it. Yeah, it's a disease. Just like obesity is a disease. And I would love for people, if I could just be an advocate, if people would see it that way, the way that you deal with those people that you love who struggle with that disease, you would approach it differently. I remember when I lost the weight, my mom came to me. I'm sorry, I went to my mother because I saw a picture and I was like, Mommy, I was dying. Why didn't you say anything? And, her answer was, we didn't know what to say or how to say it without it hurting your feelings or without it breaking you. And so a lot of times people just don't address it because they don't know what to say.
But they're like, oh, you look beautiful.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with grief. Sometimes you just don't know what to say when the truth is people need you to say something, So I feel like even for those people, you have loved ones who are struggling with the disease of obesity, just kind of be intentional about loving on them, inviting them to the gym with you, inviting them to go out on a walk with you, living out a healthy life in front of them.
Right.
Because
Listen,
sometimes
I agree with that.
People who don't deal with obesity, you just live how you want to live, eat what you want to eat.
Don't order that fried chicken and biscuits, and I'm over here struggling.
Yeah, and your life is influencing their lives as well. So that would be some encouragement I would give to people.
Now let's get to this album.
Woo!
Tasha, talk to me about what this process was like for you, because like you said, and we started the conversation with this, you've done live albums, but this is your first studio album.
Yeah.
So how was that for you? And is this something you can foresee yourself doing more?
Yes. First, I have to give a huge kudos to my husband, Kenneth Leonard. He produced this record, and it is just absolutely amazing. One of the things that I love about how he produces, even as a music director, he makes everybody feel safe and comfortable. Okay. So from the background singers to every person playing instruments to every producer that's involved, Kenny absorbs the vision. So for months, I talked to him about what I wanted this to sound like, what I wanted it to look like. And so once he gets that vision, he walks it out.
What did you say you wanted it to sound like?
So I wanted it to sound, one of the things is so funny. So over the past 2 or 3 years, I keep getting these invites to do like Cyphers on BET. And I remember going to the Jennifer Hudson show and they were like, freestyle for us. And I'm like, who told y'all I was a rapper? And I realized that I was being introduced to another creative expression that I did not know existed, like that I didn't know I had it in me. So people kept calling for me to do it, and so I had to perfect it because it's just me. Like I'm not gonna do it shabby, so let me just make sure I do it right. And I realized then, hey, this is another sound, not something new. I'm just building on top of the sound that I've already created.
It's evolving.
Yes, it's evolving. And so that was one of the things that I told him. I was like, I think there's gonna be some rap on this album.
You did Britney Spears, or I Did It Again.
Oh, did you like that? Yes. I felt that too. I felt like it would have like a 90s pop feel.
Yes.
And in a 90s gospel feel, because some of the songs even has like this 90s vibe on it. So when I expressed all of that to him, the way that he developed the tracks, it was all just perfect. Every time I would hear, that is so what I heard. So I love the way that he takes a vision and he makes it come alive. And so every day when we were in the writing sessions, because I did a writing camp leading up to it with some of my favorite writers. So it was like Naomi Rain, Chandler Moore, Travis Greene, all these incredible gospel artists. Jonas Myron, who is an amazing pop writer. Who else was there? Hank. It's just all of these songwriters. And for 5 days, we were at the studio just writing songs, and I would tell them stories about my life. I would tell them testimonies about my life, and they would take them and create these sonings. So a lot of the songs that you hear on the record were just made in the moment of me sharing my stories with them. It was such a great experience, those writing sessions.
Tell me the story behind I Still Choose You.
Oh, so I Still Choose You. I love that you asked about that song. So I literally, during this process, I would wake up in the middle of the night sometimes with these sounds and songs in my head. And I felt like I had this Benny and the Jets kind of vibe. Like I kept hearing, dun, 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 I still choose you. So we were in one of the writing sessions and I was like, guys, this could be corny or not. And I'm not, listen, I don't live with stuff on my shoulders. Yeah.
Come on.
And so we were actually doing lunch and all of the writers were sitting around, and I said, okay, I want to sing this vibe for you. And I was like, I still choose you. So Vaughn, who was like a brother of mine, he got on the piano, he started playing the dum dum da da da, and then I said, I think Kirk needs to be on this song. So right after that writing session, I sent just the writing session to Kirk, and I was like, Kirk, you got to do this song with me. And Kirk and I had never done, like, I did a song with him, Tamala Man, and it was another singer that was on that song, but nothing, just him and I together. And I felt like this was the perfect moment for that. So when I sent that song to Kirk, that's how it was developed. And we sent him just like it was a shell of a song. But when he got in the studio, it's nothing like being in the studio with Kirk. It is a masterclass.
I can imagine.
Oh, a masterclass.
Like, Kirk is hilarious to
Yeah.
me. But he is definitely a person that has defied like what expectations are that people would place him and confine him to.
He had them bring out this computer, and he was standing like on a desk just like this, and he was like, let me just play this like this, and then he would come up with these lyrics. Watching him is like watching a genius at work.
I want him to produce like you leading a den of queens.
Kirk, do you hear this?
I think that could go.
We do need one episode where we're like, okay, the Den of Queens, we got to speak up.
I feel like we need, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I love that.
So now that this, just seeing like what the response has been, you feel you should feel amazing.
Yeah,
a number one album. You also Billboard 2020, the Gospel Artist of the Decade. I mean, that's huge. How did you feel when you found that out?
I was like, I am still like, what? But you know what? I feel like during that time, it's when streams was just growing. So people were streaming more records. I remember in 2017 when I released Heart, Passion, Pursuit, that album just like made history for streams, people streaming that album during the time. And it was during that time, you know, people were like, they didn't want to receive it. They didn't want to do it, especially artists, because, you know, you didn't get paid as much from the streams, and you still don't. You know, streams is, I don't even know how many streams you have to get in order for it to equal a record.
It's not.
Yeah, but I embraced it because I was like, you know, it's like, you know, somebody saying I still want to listen to a cassette tape and not get a CD. Like, life is
it's gonna
always
keep on going.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just kind of embraced the streaming idea, and people gravitated to it. You know,
are you gonna embrace AI for anything?
Oh my goodness!
Since you're talking about embracing,
you know what?
things.
But now I'm 44, and I'm like, what are y'all doing over there? They can literally take your voice and make a song out of it. You know, I don't know. You know, I am not the type of person who will. I'm not just gonna deny something. I feel like you can find good in all things that are created. So I feel like, hey, in AI, the way that I use it, I can use it for the good.
Okay.
Of course, people are going to use it, you know, with ill intent. But for me, the way that we use AI, I think you can use it for the good. The Bible actually says that he's working all things together for your good. Okay. So it's, you know, it's my idea. Anything that is at the tip of our fingers, I believe that God can use it for his good. Yeah.
You know, I want to go back to Do It Anyway now, and let's talk about, in your book, you discuss being present and how important that was for you, because look at all the things that you have going on, right? And there was a period of time when it's like, we're just running on fumes. We're just showing up as a responsibility to the places that we have to be. Like you said, you'd be at the Grammys and doing work on your phone. Sometimes we're at concerts, everybody's holding up their phone. I was looking at some of my footage from my Angela Yee Day, and there's one part where Egyptian gets on the stage and everybody just has their phone up. I'm like, wow, everybody's just, that's like the thing now. Instead of my eyes, I got my phone up. So talk to me about how you've managed to become more present and some ways that you've seen that benefit your life.
I love this. I love to talk about this because it goes back to my therapist. Well, I had a therapist when I was living in Atlanta, and one of the things that she challenged me to do is to be present. And a lot of people don't know this because they think my sneaker game is what it is just because I like sneakers. Is not. I actually have bone-on-bone arthritis in both of my toes. Okay. And I'm going somewhere with this. I played basketball when I was younger. I broke a toe and it never healed properly. So now.
What position?
I was forward.
Okay.
Yeah, power forward. So when I broke the toe, right around 30 years old, I started having excruciating pain. I realized that I had arthritis in both of my toes. And so doing shows with heels on was just the pain was unbearable. And I decided, hey, I'm just going to wear sneakers. So one of the things that she said to me was, make your loved ones make you be present. So have them to ask you, how do you feel right now? Are your toes hurting? Do you have a headache? She was like, just those questions will bring you back to a space of right now, living in the moment. And still to this day, my husband sometimes will grab me by my shoulders and say, do you have a headache? How are you feeling? Something great just happened in your life. I want you not to miss it. Living in what's next. And so one of the things, I have to give a kudos to my loved ones, like my mom and my husband, and sometimes even my children make me be present, and I feel like sometimes we have to entrust the people around us to help us do that, because I don't want to miss Asher's life. I don't want to miss, even like Thursday, my 4-year-old has a baseball game coming up. He's a toddler. They're all over the place, but I want to be there for that. I want to experience the laughs. I want to make the memories. You
want to scream.
Yeah. I want to be that mom, the soccer mom. I want to have that feel. But before, to be honest, I wasn't always that way. I was living in what's next, just always super, super busy. And so I want my life to encourage people to be present. Even those of us who are busy and who carry a lot of weights and a lot of responsibilities, there's still a way to be present.
It's always going to be something that you could be doing.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you have to say no to certain things, even though you're like, it could be good for me. I need to do this. Yep. But sometimes it's like, no, next time I'll do the thing. But it's just not working with the other responsibilities or things that I want to be present for.
That's true.
Now, another thing you've been open about is your journey with family and having children.
Yes.
And so when did you feel comfortable enough to even be able to share your story, which I think is the story of so many women, that they could benefit from hearing what you've been through?
Yeah, I think with the book, Do It Anyway, that was the first... that was the first time I had a chance to share it in lots of detail about us going through the IVF and having endometriosis. So I've been diagnosed with endometriosis. Yes. And what it does is it just kind of prevents you from giving birth. There's a lot of scar tissue and a lot of pain that I've endured for many, many years. And I didn't have a lot of information about it until after we got married. And so that first year, I was like, I think there's something going on that we need to find out, what it is. And so we went to a specialist and they told me I had endometriosis. And so for a year, we would travel to Houston, from North Carolina to Houston once a month, to have injections just to clear out the endometriosis enough so that we could try to have a baby. And so I did that for 9 months, I believe. We went to Houston, and they were like, okay, it's cleared out enough so that you can try the IVF. And so my husband's story is a little different. It's actually, we can laugh about it now, because he's like, after we had they did the implant with the embryos, the doctor says, now it's in God's hands. And Kenny was like, what? We know it's in God's hands. But what about you?
Do your job.
Right. He just didn't think for once that it just would not work. And that was our story, that even going through the IVF and all of the years of trying, it did not work the natural way for us.
Right.
But we chose adoption.
Which I love.
Yes. And we have such a beautiful baby boy, Asher, who is now 4 years old. And
I know that baby is so loved.
Oh, he is the perfect baby for our family. His siblings spoil him. Everybody spoils him. But Asher, he looks like us. He acts like us. And he's just, he's God's design for our family. And I have a friend who says something that I'll never forget. She said a lot of times we love to receive God's will for our lives. So God's will was that we have a child. But sometimes we don't stick around to hear his way and to do it his way. We want to do things our way. And I have a song on the record that talks about the conversation about the tug of war between God's will and our will, and how we're asking God, why don't you do this? I've asked for this. I've prayed for this. And when are you going to come through? And just to be honest, we're human, and so sometimes you have those conversations, and God is not afraid of those conversations. He's God.
I be trying not to just pray when I need something. You got to make sure. I just want to be thankful, grateful.
Right. Be grateful.
For the small things.
But sometimes we just want it our way.
Yeah.
And but God's way is always the best way. I can't imagine life without Asher. I don't even know what life was like without Asher.
Yes,
Yeah.
and listen, Asher is blessed too because
Yes.
I'm sure there couldn't have been a better situation for Asher too.
That's our baby boy. Yep. As a matter of fact, coming here, he thinks he's supposed to go everywhere with us.
He's
He
like,
was
I'm not
like,
into this.
yeah, I'm like, you have to go to school. He's K4 now. So I read something the other day because Asher's a pandemic baby, and I didn't even think of it this way. That it said, hey guys, all the pandemic kids are going to kindergarten, and I'm like,
wow.
oh my goodness, that is so true. Yep. So
What
Asher's.
a wild time that was.
I know.
What do you tell yourself about what's happening in the United States right now? You know, there's a lot of things being rolled back, and then we have to be like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And for everybody else who's wondering, what do we do? Like, businesses are suffering. Black women with employment and entrepreneurship are suffering. Education, the system is suffering. There's just so much going on. The National Guard is being called into D.C. It just feels like chaos right now. So what would you say in a time like this to somebody who is like, why is this happening?
Yeah, I have to be true to who I am. I think that in this season, we have to run to God. Like, in all seriousness, you have to run to God and find out what his plan is for your life. I was at a conference the other day, and the speaker was up, and he said something that was just so touching to me. Like, you know, sometimes we got to clear out all of the noise, all of the clutter. And if that means to turn off the news sometimes, if that means to deactivate your Instagram and your TikTok for a little while so you can hear what God desires for you and your family right now. What are the steps and the moves that I need to make? And I think we also have to be a little bit more wise with how we spend, what we're spending on, you know, how we're navigating through life. And you can only get those instructions from God. You know, God, what do you have for me in this season? I believe we just, you know, we live, those of us who are children of God, we live different.
Right.
And we cannot live in fear. I refuse to live in fear of what's going to happen next. You know, what's the doom that's going to happen next? Because that's not God's will for me. God's will is that we prosper and be in good health, even as our souls prosper. And the one place that you have to run to, even when things are frantic and there's a lot of anxiety and fear, you have to run to Jesus.
I know that's right.
Yeah. I had to preach a little bit right there.
I needed that. And I'm sure everybody listening needed that too.
Yeah.
But Tasha Cobbs Leonard, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
This was honestly amazing and such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And just enjoying your whole story, your new album, Tasha, that's out right now. So make sure you check that out. And if you haven't read, do it anyway. You know, pick that up. As you can see, I was all into it.
Thank
so
you.
sometimes I need to learn like what prayers I should. I think it's very helpful just as a guide.
Oh, awesome.
for me.
Thank you. Thank you.